Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Pfeiffer here, and it's now 12 o'clock, so we're looking to get this meeting started. And I ask that Carrie give an intro and welcome.
Thanks, Chris. My name's Kerry Rappold. I'm with the City of Wilsonville. I'm the Natural Resources Manager, and I'm in charge of the project, the Urban Forest Management Plan. So today is the second virtual open house that we're offering. We'll be doing another one actually tonight at 6:30. And the first open house was in September, and that was more of an opportunity to give a general overview of what we're doing with the project. And today's open house will be a little bit of that overview too, but we'll be focusing on the two areas in the community town center and Charbonneau, where we're doing some extensive work in regards to inventorying of trees and also the analysis and the recommendations. So I'll turn it back over to Chris and his team at Planet Geo. They'll give you a great presentation today, and we certainly welcome any input that you have. Thanks.
All right, well, thank you, Carrie, and thank you to everyone for taking the time to listen into the live meeting or the recording today. Before we begin, I'd like to start off with a quote from a model of urban forestry sustainability by James Clark and colleagues. And before we get into that, just want to mention to use the chat box if you have issues with any audio or video, and my staff will take a look at that to try and assist. But the meeting will be recorded, so share this with other folks that weren't able to attend or consider the evening session. So thanks again. And now we'll lead into the presentation with the quote from James Clark. And this quote states that urban trees and forests are considered integral to the sustainability of cities as a whole. Yet sustainable urban forests are not born, they are made. They do not arise at random, but result from a community-wide commitment to their creation and management. This quote is a great reminder that community education and engagement is vital to urban forestry planning, and it emphasizes the importance of us gathering today. As Carrie mentioned, my name is Chris Pfeiffer. I'm the Director of Urban Forestry Consulting Services for Planet Geo and the project manager for the city's of Wilsonville's Urban Forest Management Plan project. We also have a team of urban forestry consultants, Megan Blansett and Andrew Carrier, who are assisting in the processes that a lot of their work was involved in preparing this presentation with the project findings. So we're excited to present some initial findings, which will help to create the discussion around the vision for the management plan and also looking at the goals and strategies in the plan. And before you hear from me, I'll be doing a lot of talking, presenting out, but we first want to take the opportunity to open it up for folks to just share a few things about yourselves, if you're comfortable with doing so. It's always great to hear where folks are coming from, even sharing, what brought you here today. Are you concerned about a specific area, interest in urban forestry and trees in general? Do you have questions or comments? And also just general information about your favorite tree, park, or other asset or feature of urban forestry. And we want to mention to continue to use the chat box throughout the presentation. In other circumstances, we would be doing these community meetings in person, but we are doing these virtually, so we want to open up as much dialogue and open discussion as possible. So we'll have some polls, some question and answer periods, and an open discussion. But anything that you'd like to share in the chat, you're welcome to do so as we go along in the presentation. So for today's presentation, we'll set the stage by describing the extent of the urban forest and what will be covered in the urban forest plan. We'll also describe the benefits of trees and the urban forest and why a plan is important. We'll then recap the key issues and opportunities discussed during September's community meeting. And to address the key issues and enhance the benefits of trees, our project approach includes research, data analyses, benchmarking research, and a systematic auditing process that has uncovered information relating to the urban forest that we'll present as project findings. With the information presented, we'll work together to establish a draft vision statement for the plan and ultimately Wilsonville's urban forest. Then we'll conclude with a recap and summary of next steps, followed by an open discussion period using the chat, results of the polls, and live question and answer periods. And I see some folks contributing to the chat, and just going to check that quick to make sure we're not running into issues. And that's great. We're going to circle back to this chat room and take a look at some of the comments and questions that folks put in the chat. So thanks for participating. To set the stage, I'd like to describe the different landscapes that comprise the urban forest and what this plan will address. When discussing a plan for the urban forest, we look citywide across all landscapes and ownership types. We also look at natural areas and open space. We look at riparian areas such as the Willamette River Water Treatment Plant Park, trees on academic and institutional lands, trees in parks and residential land, trees in industrial areas, and trees in commercial or downtown areas such as town center. In any landscape, trees are city infrastructure and require cohesive planning and management similar to managing stormwater, sidewalks, and other assets. These trees across the landscape provide benefits to the community. The urban forest reduces stormwater and improves water quality. Trees provide shade over sidewalk and parking lots to reduce urban heat islands and the effects of increased pavement, and they save energy. Trees also increase property values and improve human health and well-being, among many other environmental, economic, and social benefits. So when we look specifically at these benefits, not only are these benefits seen and felt, they can be measured and quantified. The value of individual trees and the entire urban forest can be calculated in terms of increased property value, human health impacts from improving the air quality, the savings acquired from reducing stormwater that would otherwise be managed by a treatment facility, and the reduced energy use as a result of trees providing shade over residential and commercial properties. This slide illustrates the message that larger, long-lasting trees provide significantly more benefits and value. So as trees increase in age and size, the value generally increases. Therefore, the management plan will emphasize the importance of planting large trees where feasible and with enough soil volume and space, among other considerations like the watering regimen, the species function, and the maintenance available to take care of these trees. An urban forest management plan is a vital planning document to shape and manage the urban forests of tomorrow. So we know that urban forests provide benefits, but there are also issues and concerns that need to be addressed in a plan. And the plan will address issues and concerns such as population growth. As population continues to expand, the space for new plantings is reduced and existing trees may sometimes be removed. Native and exotic tree pests and diseases continue to threaten urban and rural trees, and future unknown pests are always a concern. Invasive plant species compete with beneficial vegetation and provide less ecosystem benefits. The needs of the city must be addressed, such as the management of stormwater and climate resiliency. The plan will provide recommendations and adaptive management measures to enhance the level of service and available resources for urban forest management. Storms and disasters require proper procedures to prepare, manage, and recover. Urban forest policy must be reviewed and updated to support goals in a management plan, and the community goals must also be supported. These efforts for urban forest policy should not discourage smart development and other city operations. The plan will improve efficiencies, workflows, policies, procedures, and communications relating to trees and construction conflicts. And staff and department responsibilities and workflows will be addressed as the urban forestry program is evaluated in the planning process that we'll present in this presentation. So this is a transition as we get into some of the findings and just a recap of some of the discussion topics of the September meeting. And this is also a reminder to check the chat box so that we can get the conversations going as we lead into the vision development and then open discussions. So now that we set the stage by providing the extent of the urban forest and the benefits of trees, as well as the importance of proper urban forest planning, we'd like to discuss the key programs, plans, and policies relating to Wilsonville's trees. Much of the urban forestry program is coordinated by the Natural Resources Program within the Community Development Department and is supported by other departments and partners. Some of this on the slide was presented in the September community meetings, but we'd like to restate some of these because they are important to the management planning process. So there are a variety of programs managed or supported by the Natural Resources Program. These include the Bee Stewards Program, creating pollinator habitats, the Backyard Habitat Certification Program, low impact development projects, and education and events such as the winter tree plantings led by the city and Friends of Trees. There are other urban forestry related programs such as the Heritage Tree Program, which identifies trees classified as unique or significant by a volunteer citizen committee. You can check out these heritage trees by taking a virtual tour, and to find these, search for Wilsonville's heritage trees online, and you'll be able to see this interactive virtual tour of heritage trees across the city. The city is also achieving national recognition for its urban forestry program by being awarded a Tree City USA for 22 years by the Arbor Day Foundation. In addition, the city has received the prestigious Sterling Tree City USA Award, and that's for having received 10 growth awards from the Arbor Day Foundation. So now, after talking about programs, I just want to highlight some plans as it relates to urban forestry and how we'll connect the management plan to existing efforts. So it's important to evaluate existing city and partner plans to gauge the city's readiness for improved urban forest management. The management plan must also recognize existing goals and actions, and the plan should complement and support one another. Some of these existing plans include the comprehensive plan, which was developed in 2000, and it was most recently updated in June of this year. There's also the Wilsonville Urban Renewal Strategic Plan of 2014, which led to the development of the Coffee Creek Master Plan in 2016, among other sub-area plans. Also, planned neighborhoods often have master plans, such as the Town Center Plan of 2019, which puts people first with walkable streetscapes and places to gather, shop, work, eat, and recreate. There's also other plans such as the Stormwater Master Plan of 2012, which looks to support low impact development and the use of trees to reduce stormwater and improve water quality. And there are also many other city and partner plans that are in progress or in effect throughout the city. And as we go through the process of establishing goals and strategies, we want to be sure that, as I mentioned before, they support and do not contradict one another. Lastly, just want to briefly mention policies that exist for the trees in Wilsonville. Looking at tree-related policies, a strong foundation is required for any successful urban forestry program. The city currently has urban forestry-related policies under Section 4.600 of City Code's Development Code. And this section provides the guidelines for tree protection, maintenance, removals, and planting. There are other policies that impact or influence the urban forests, and these include the standards applying to residential developments in any zone and the Significant Resource Overlay Zone, or SROZ, which regulates uses and activities that could impact locally significant wetlands, riparian corridors, and upland wildlife habitat. So I just wanted to provide that background, which will lead into the project findings and what we found in our initial research and implementing 6 planning elements as part of this project. And again, just a reminder to use the chat box and to stay tuned for the open discussion period, as well as the polls that are coming up in the presentation. The process to develop Wilsonville's management plan consists of 6 planning elements, and these were really detailed in the September meeting, and we'll just more or less talk about the findings from these, but these 6 planning elements will lead us to an effective and efficient management plan. And they consist of conducting the research, doing city workflows and operations, meetings and workshops, analyzing existing conditions by looking at data sets, conducting benchmarking research, gathering community input and feedback, and then applying those outcomes to the urban forest audit system. So this section of the presentation will discuss some of the initial findings which will help us to shape the vision during this meeting today. As we look at Wilsonville's urban forest today, we describe the data and information relating to the public tree population. The city has an inventory of public trees consisting of over 24,000 data points, and that's shown there on the map on the right of your screen. The city also has 15 public parks containing trees in maintained areas and natural areas, and these parks consist of over 1,500 acres, which is based on the 2016 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So a lot of trees, a lot of parks, and a lot of land to manage, and there's also opportunities to expand on that, and it's important to look at ways to preserve what canopy we do have. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking a bit about the findings. So right now we're in the planning element of looking at existing conditions. The city has an inventory of public trees consisting of over 24,000 data points, and ISA certified arborists recently completed an inventory of trees in Town Center and trees along Southwest French Prairie Road in Charbonneau neighborhood. This data, along with the citywide inventory, is being used to inform the goals and strategies in the plan. So the next few slides are going to provide an overview of the findings from these inventories. We'll first look citywide, we'll then look by town center, and then by Charbonneau specifically. And as I said before, this helps us to inform the goals and strategies in the management plan. So now getting into the data, keep in mind that what we present here is going to be summarized in a research summary. So we're going to provide a list of charts and highlights from the information, but if you'd like to learn more about a specific area of data analysis, we'll have that in a report for you to review. And of course, we can talk about it during this meeting today. So again, we're looking specifically at the citywide analysis. That's 24,000 trees or data points. And what we find is presented on this slide here. When we look at the public tree population, we find that maples, oaks, pines, ash, and cherry trees comprise the majority of the population. More specifically, red maples, Norway maples, red oaks, Japanese maples, and Emerald Queen Norway maples make up the top 5 species, and that's citywide for public trees. It should be noted that 29% of the tree population consists of maples, and the top 10 species comprise nearly half of all the public trees citywide. So that list of trees on your screen in that chart, those species make up half of the entire public tree population. The management plan will closely analyze this information to make recommendations for improved diversity and resiliency to pests, diseases, and the effects of climate change. All right, and then getting into more information on the citywide analysis. The distribution of tree ages influences the structure of the urban forest, as well as the present and future costs to the city or property owners. An uneven aged urban forest offers continued flow of benefits and a more uniform workflow, allowing managers to more accurately allocate annual maintenance funds. So understanding the structure can help us to lay out a plan for planting to maintain benefits and to not have surges of high demands of maintenance needs, declining trees. You want a continued flow of healthy trees and sustained benefits. Looking at the citywide public inventory data set, we find that 40% of the trees are between 0 and 6 inches in diameter, followed by the 6 to 12 inch diameter class. All diameter classes for Wilsonville's public tree population closely resemble what we call the ideal distribution. And that ideal distribution is based on the research of city tree populations by the US Forest Service and other partners. This ideal distribution has an abundance of newly planted and young trees to sustain canopy and associated benefits as the older tree population, naturally declines over time. So it's great to see with our overall citywide analysis, the structure based on size classes resembles that ideal distribution. All right, now we're going to look specifically at town center. And again, just some highlights, they'll be available in the research summary. But what we find from the 2020 inventory conducted for town center is the data and information that will be used as part of the management plan project. In town center, we see less of an ideal distribution of tree sizes, an abundance of red maples and Callery pears, and the majority of the tree population is in good condition as determined by the certified arborists that conducted the inventory. This information is crucial to the development and redevelopment plans that are ongoing in town center. Trees that must be removed should be carefully evaluated based on their species, condition, longevity, and function. Trees should also be preserved where feasible, and if trees are to be removed, the appropriate replacement species should be determined and will be determined in the management plan. And guidance will also be provided in the management plan to look at the location and timing for the replacement species. Still looking at town center, we want to look at the available growing space and the maintenance needs as we look at the trees in town center. Most trees here in town center are in planting strips, and the majority require routine tree pruning, which consists of the removal of dead, dying, decayed, or damaged limbs, and the removal of limbs to provide clearance over rights-of-way, roadways, and sidewalks. Of the 1,440 trees inventoried in town center, 185 trees were recommended for priority 2 pruning by certified arborists. So this type of pruning may include pruning to remove a broken branch, removal of large deadwood, removal of branches to improve structural integrity, or a combination of factors. And so this is information that needs to be more closely looked at in order to provide maintenance recommendations, but it'll be analyzed more closely as we put together the management plan. Lastly, just wanted to look at some of the species and the maintenance requirements. And keep in mind that the more prevalent a species is in town center, the likelihood of that species requiring more maintenance. But it's interesting to note that Callery pear has the highest count requiring priority tree work. These species, though an attractive flowering tree, often have structural issues and weak branches. But again, keep in mind that maintenance needs are often related to the frequency of that species in the inventory. All right, so now we're going to get into a bit about the Charbonneau inventory. And this inventory of trees along Southwest French Prairie Road was completed also in 2020 by certified arborists. The inventory found that the majority of trees are over 18 inches in diameter, consisting primarily of oaks, and specifically northern red oak. So these are large trees along Southwest French Prairie Road. 71% of the 916 trees inventoried are in good condition. As mentioned before, species and age diversity are important factors when planning maintenance and budgets and to sustain the canopy and associated benefits that I described earlier. So these considerations for Charbonneau will be addressed in the plan. And as I mentioned before, more details will be provided in the research summary. Similar to town center, we closely examined the maintenance needs of the 916 trees inventoried in Charbonneau. The majority of trees are growing in other maintained areas outside of medians, and 50% of trees require routine maintenance. Again, that's the removal of dead or dying or decayed branches. Of the 916 trees inventoried, about 130 require priority 1 pruning, and 300 trees require priority 2 pruning. So these pruning needs may include some of the same things that I mentioned for town center, which are possibly a broken branch, large deadwood, or pruning for structural issues. This type of information is useful in prioritizing tree maintenance and the outreach necessary for mitigating concerns. All right, and then one last slide specific to Charbonneau is we look closely at how the species are performing in this population. Since oaks are prevalent in the inventory, we find oaks requiring the most maintenance. The next few slides will look more closely at species performance and how that information can be used to inform future tree plantings. So keep in mind as we present these findings, there's a lot of detail and a lot of notes, but what we want to provide is an overview to help steer the vision conversation later in the presentation. And before I switch here, I just want to check a couple things in the chat and make sure that my connection here is okay, and we'll move on. All right, now turning back to the citywide analysis, that's the 24,000 trees. We want to summarize the existing conditions of Wilsonville's urban forest for use in the plan. So we take a look at the tree species and their performance in the urban forest. Referred to as importance value, we look at each species percent of the population, their total leaf area percent, and total canopy cover percent. This evaluation determines the urban forest resiliency. For example, a species might represent 10% of a population, but have an importance value of 25 due to its substantial benefits. So that may indicate that the loss of those tree species due to pests, diseases, or climate impacts would be more significant than what their population percentage would suggest. When we look at the citywide inventory of 24,000 trees, we find red maples to have the highest importance value due to their abundance and significant leaf area. Notice the abundance of maples in this list of top 10 importance values. This means that maples have a significant role in Wilsonville's urban forest. This also puts the urban forest at risk, and therefore increased diversity should be implemented when planting new trees. It's also important to note that the Callery pear comprise 4% of the population, which is similar to Douglas fir, but these Callery pears only have an importance value of 6.9 compared to 13.4 for Douglas fir. And that's because pears overall provide less overall benefit compared to other tree species. One last thing to note on this slide is that green ash trees are in the top 10 for importance value, but they're susceptible to emerald ash borer, which is a tree pest that's not yet in Washington, but it has killed millions of ash trees in the Midwest and Eastern US and is gradually moving westward. So we look at importance value to see the main contributors to canopy benefits and what should be done to maintain and enhance the canopy and benefits. One last thing specific to the tree inventory data, and again, looking citywide, is the analysis to determine the importance of a species. And we look at the performance of individual tree species in the citywide inventory. Because the top 10 most prevalent species comprise nearly half of the tree population, we can look specifically at their relative performance index to generalize performance of the urban forest. Relative Performance Index, or RPI, compares the condition of an individual species to the condition of the overall tree population. An RPI of 1 means the species is performing as well as the overall population. An RPI below 1 means the species is underperforming, and an RPI higher than 1 means the species is in better condition than the overall tree population. So this chart shows the target RPI in green, which is the straight horizontal line. The orange line indicates the RPIs for the top 10 species. Again, those species comprise half of the citywide tree population. So based on this analysis, Douglas firs, Zelkova, green ash are in poorer condition overall compared to the tree population. They're below that horizontal line. This doesn't necessarily mean to stop planting these species, but it does suggest further evaluations to determine their underperformance. Perhaps it's related to the planting site, soil volume, lack of maintenance, or a combination of factors that could potentially be resolved. Lastly, it should be noted that the age distribution of species, which could impact the RPI. For example, if the majority of oak trees are greater than 24 inches in diameter, they may start to show signs of decline because they're growing larger, they're beginning to decline in health because of their age, but that doesn't mean that they weren't performing well at younger stages of their life. So we need to closely examine these RPIs and to evaluate each species as we provide recommendations in the plan. But the RPI is a good step at tier 1 analysis to see how species are performing. All right, now we're getting into some more information about the trees, but more specifically about the benefits. As mentioned earlier, the benefits of trees can be quantified using the latest research to demonstrate the urban forest's role as a vital contributor to a community's environment, economy, and society. Looking specifically at the focus areas that were inventoried this year, it was found that 2,356 trees inventoried provide nearly $280,000 in annual benefits. $48,000 of benefits are derived from stormwater management. It's estimated that those 2,400 trees prevent nearly 4.4 million gallons of stormwater runoff per year. In addition, the 2,400 trees sequester the carbon dioxide emitted from nearly 175 vehicles per year. And that's assuming some averages, but that's 175 vehicle emissions that trees sequester in terms of carbon dioxide. It was also found that 2,400 trees save energy equivalent to the usage of 26 family households annually. So imagine what the entire public tree population provides, or even the entire urban forest on public and private property. Fortunately, the Urban Forest Management Plan is evaluating this to help the city and its partners encourage urban forest stewardship. And some of the initial findings are presented on the next slide. As part of the management plan project, the benefits and costs of the entire public tree population are being analyzed. Based on the 24,000 trees with data to support these analyses, the structural value of the public tree population is over $46.4 million. Annually, the 24,000 trees prevent stormwater runoff equivalent to the volume of seven Olympic-sized swimming pools. Annually, the public trees remove nearly 6,700 pounds of pollutants and sequester over 14 million pounds of carbon. An initial course estimate determines that the 24,000 trees add over $1.8 million in property value and save energy equivalent to the usage of 50 standard households annually. And I do want to look at some comments and questions in the chat to make sure that we're staying on pace and everyone is their questions are being addressed. So yes, thank you, Andrew, for taking care of these questions. We'll circle back to more of these during the open discussion. I appreciate everyone contributing in the chat. All right, so the last thing we're going to look at involves the urban forest benchmarking research. So that is one of the 6 planning elements that I referenced early in the presentation. And then we'll talk a little bit about the first public survey, and then we'll turn it over for open discussion. So in addition to an analysis of existing conditions, the benchmarking research was conducted to compare Wilsonville's baseline conditions with industry standards and comparable communities. One attribute analyzed as part of this benchmarking included the urban forestry budget compared to the human population of the community. Using other regional cities as benchmarks, Wilsonville's urban forestry budget is higher than the regional average and only lower than those of some of the larger cities in the cohort. When comparing directly against population figures, Wilsonville's budget is slightly higher than most regional cities of similar size. While Wilsonville's urban forestry budget numbers are on par with the regional average, which is shown on the far left, predictions of continued metro area growth and increasing challenges from climate change make sustaining these budget figures very important. So we want to continue to look at the budget compared to the per capita, as well as the levels of service and the community feedback and input that we receive from these meetings and the public surveys. Oftentimes, to properly analyze city resources compared to standards in other cities, we use the budget per capita calculation. When compared to other cities in the region, Wilsonville's per capita budget numbers are higher than the regional average and higher than the Tree City USA minimum, But when breaking these budget figures out into more specific areas um, of spending, such as program management, removals, maintenance, and planting, we see Wilsonville spending a much larger proportion of its overall budget on program management compared to other cities similar in size in the region. The data also suggests that Wilsonville spends a much lower proportion of its urban forestry budget on removals and plantings compared to other cities in the region. Though we see Wilsonville's per capita budget higher than the regional average, there are less in-house urban forest maintenance activities conducted compared to the regional average. Looking at the 2019 figures, Wilsonville planted 40 trees, pruned 110 trees, and removed 19 trees in 2019. This does not account for partnership plantings or contracted maintenance and removals, but the next slide provides a table summary to expand on this analysis and to support the findings that we presented in these previous slides. So this slide provides a comparison of budget, and the list is ordered by the least amount of difference in human population compared to Wilsonville. Recommendations in the plan will consider the existing budget, industry standards, desired levels of service, and priorities. So what we presented there with a comparison of different cities and the regional average is summarized in this table here for a different way to view the information. Again, the list is ordered by the difference in population size compared to Wilsonville. That's just one attribute to use when to identify cities to make comparisons from. Again, it's not to say that we're going to establish goals and strategies to match another city or to achieve a certain level and to increase a certain bar chart. We're going to be looking at all 6 planning elements. We're going to be developing goals and strategies based on feedback from the community as well as from city staff and stakeholders, and then go through a draft and final review process to finalize those goals and strategies. But this benchmarking lets us establish realistic and attainable goals based on what we see in the community currently and what is recommended by industry standards. Lastly, we use the community forestry census, which was completed in 2014, to complete a broad comparison of Wilsonville's urban forest to regional and national averages. The summaries before used the Tree City USA data, which to obtain the accreditation from Arbor Day for Tree City USA, cities have to report certain metrics to Arbor Day in order to receive that award. So we use those reports to generate the comparisons that were previously presented. Now we're looking at this 2014 census that was done nationwide. While Wilsonville is above average for budget per capita, the city is less than average when looking at the budget per public tree. Wilson has approximately $9.70 available per public tree compared to the Western region average of about $19 and the $13 average for cities with a human population between 25 and 50,000 people. So again, this is looking more bigger picture, looking at the Western region and looking at averages for cities with a population size similar to Wilsonville. As part of the planning process, the first public survey was released in September. So now we're going to talk a bit about those findings, and there are many questions, but we're just going to present some highlights from that survey. Again, this is to help the discussions coming up relating to the vision, strategies for the management plan, and the open discussion. So there were close to 80 surveys that were completed for the first round of the survey in September. Information gathered from these surveys will inform the plan's outreach and education strategies, along with the framework to enhance the program and the resource. The first survey consisted of 19 questions, and several of the results are provided on the slides as I mentioned. And when we look at the first question here presented on the slide, we ask about the existing tree canopy coverage in the city. We found that 56% of responses felt that the canopy cover is good, but there should be more. This would require additional tree plantings by the city and partners, as well as maintaining efforts to preserve trees And as we get into the second round of the survey, we're going to look more closely at strategies and expand on that idea of having more trees and more tree canopy cover as good for Wilsonville. Excuse me. All right, a few more summary or highlights from the survey. The fourth question in the survey asked about the urgent tree-related needs in neighborhoods. The majority of responses indicated tree maintenance followed by tree protection and reduction of tree hazards as being an urgent tree-related need in their neighborhood. To inform a plan that addresses the equitable distribution of urban forest canopy and associated benefits, the question of where more trees are needed was asked. Largely, responses selected commercial and industrial areas, as well as in planned communities and developments. The third highest count is for trees in the downtown areas. Added trees in these areas would enhance the benefits, though careful consideration of species and adequate planting space must be made. And that's going to be addressed in the urban forest management plan. And I wanted to also note that these survey results will also be captured in that research summary. So you'll have a summary of the benchmarking, a summary of the inventory analyses, as well as the surveys that are completed and available to the public. All right, two more slides on the first round of the survey. Questions in the first survey were listed to gather feedback and input specific to the focus areas of Charbonneau and Town Center. For Charbonneau, it was found that the primary urban forest issues in the neighborhood include the age and size of the trees, as well as the condition. So this is important why we did the inventory in 2020 here and analyzed the inventory data to help address some of these concerns that we're finding being summarized in these public surveys. As mentioned earlier, the tree inventory will help to inform strategies to address these concerns. For Town Center, most responses indicated that there are not enough trees or green space, but there is also limited space for planting trees. This contradiction requires careful planning and techniques to accommodate new tree plantings while not impeding smart development in Town Center. As mentioned earlier, a total of 19 questions were provided in the survey to gather feedback and perceptions as it relates to urban forest management to inform outreach, education, and strategies in the plan that we're developing. As I mentioned, a second survey is now open and available on the Let's Talk Wilsonville website. And this survey asks questions specifically to address strategies for the focus areas. And more information about this survey will be provided towards the end of this presentation. And with that, that's the conclusion of reporting out our initial findings from the Urban Forest Management Plan project. There's more to uncover as we go through the planning elements, the 6 planning elements. The one that's coming up next is the urban forest audit, where we've conducted the initial round internally, but we're going to be more closely looking at the outcomes of those planning elements to evaluate Wilsonville's urban forest as it relates to urban forest management, sustainability, and equity. As part of the plan, we will provide a research summary that details all these findings that are used to inform the plan's goals and strategies. If folks attending this presentation have questions about the findings, you can add these to the chat box. And again, we're going to open it up to open discussion towards the end of this meeting here. And with that, I'm going to transition to the exercise where we start to talk about a vision for the urban forest and the management plan itself. And excuse me, I want to get a poll ready, but first, to introduce this, now that we've provided an overview of urban forest benefits, the key issues and opportunities, existing programs and policies, and the key findings to date, we'd like to conduct an interactive exercise to develop a vision for the urban forest management plan. We've already collected and analyzed the data, but I've yet to develop the goals, strategies, and actions in the plan. So with your support, we can develop a vision for the plan and the overall urban forest. This will allow us to tailor the outcomes from the 6 planning elements and establish the goal and action framework that supports the shared and unified vision that we establish. Outcomes from this process are just the beginning in developing a vision. We'll take your feedback and discuss with city departments and stakeholders to finalize and share this vision that we have for the urban forest and the management plan itself. Before we get into the poll, I just want to set the stage with just some definitions or how we perceive a vision for a plan. A vision for the urban forest should be forward-thinking, meaning we want to think about the future of the urban forest and what it looks like for our future generations. The vision should also include clear action items that would be addressed in the plan. And it should be supported by the city, partners, stakeholders, and the community. It should be all-encompassing, non-exclusionary, and engaging. And the vision should be straightforward and simple, but specific. So with that in mind, what we prepared are a series of questions to get your thoughts around a vision for the future of Wilsonville's urban forest. And what we provided in terms of the project findings, we hope that helps provide you the context to make some suggestions and to weigh in on what you'd like to see Wilsonville look like for future generations. Now that we presented the purpose and the need for a plan, along with the initial project findings, think about these questions to help make a selection of the draft vision statement on the upcoming slides. In the chat, share some of your thoughts on what you'd like Wilsonville's urban forest to look like 10 years from now, or even 50 years from now. What types of trees are out there? Who is maintaining them? What is their function and overall purpose? And how accessible is the urban forest to all populations and neighborhoods? Think about what more tree canopy would look and feel like. Where are we planting more trees, and what would it take to achieve this? Are we planting trees for wildlife or to reduce the rising temperatures felt most highly on paved surfaces? Are we planting trees for the restorative and mental health effects that trees provide? Lastly, think about your neighborhood or the city as a whole. If you could change Wilsonville's environment in one way, what would it be? How would things be different than they are now? So think about these questions, add some comments to the chat, and jot down your ideas. Keep in mind you can share these ideas in the survey that was recently released or contacting the city directly, but we would like to capture as much thoughts around these questions as possible. On the next slide, we'll present several draft vision statements for your consideration after we establish a management plan tagline to move forward in the outreach and raising awareness about the plan and the urban forest. So I want to give folks a chance to jot down their ideas. Again, just thinking about the future of the urban forest, what you'd like to see change. Maybe there's areas where more trees are needed. I saw a question come up about the benefits trees have to wildlife. We talked about pollinator habitats. There's the idea of community orchards and fruit gleaning. You know, what would you like to see from the urban forest? Is it flowering trees, large canopied trees, and just the overall maintenance and health of the urban forest? And so to help initiate the vision statement, we'd like to just talk a bit about the tagline, as we call it, for the urban forest. And these are just suggestions. They are not meant to be selected as the one option. We're open to other suggestions, and this is just our first take on providing a tagline. And it may seem kind of simple of an exercise to do, but having a clear, consistent message about the urban forest for Wilsonville really resonates with communities, and it's something as a way to kind of brand the program and to be able to have consistent messaging. So now what I'd like to do is open up the first poll, and if you choose number 5 as other, feel free to enter that into the chat, and we'll be documenting all of this. And again, you can enter it into the survey. So I am going to launch the first poll here, and hopefully folks are able to see the poll and can make their decisions. And this is anonymous, and we want to make sure that you can share your feedback, again, using the survey or this chat. All right, we're getting 62% have voted, so thank you for weighing in. And like I said, there's probably better taglines out there to use. And as we get to know more and more about Wilsonville's urban forest, sometimes these themes or branding of the urban forest really stand out once we dig into it. All right, I'm going to give it another, another 10 seconds here, and then going to end the poll. And there will be one more then. All right, and we're closing. All right, so like I said, this is a first step in establishing the tagline, and it's important to have consistent messaging around the management plan. So we really appreciate providing your feedback. And personally, I do like the Healthy Trees, Healthy Wilsonville one as well. There's more and more research out there showing the restorative effects of the urban forest. You may have heard of forest bathing, which sounds funny, but there is science and research where going out into the woods, even parks or woodlots, provide a restorative effect. And a lot of times, the urban forest, the trees along streets, the park trees, are the only access that some community members have to a forest setting. So it's really important to have healthy trees. The other ideas is the idea of a shared commitment to establish an urban forest plan and for implementation. And also the second one takes a look at the quote that I shared early on, is that urban forests are created and they need to be managed. And then just thinking about how people plant and need to maintain trees, and they also benefit the people that plant and maintain and live among the urban forest. So thank you all for taking this poll. I'm going to share results, I believe, and then I'm going to close that. And just in case, Andrew, could you take a screenshot of that as well? And then we'll move on to the next one here. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing, and then we get into some more discussion. Let's see here. We'll now be posting a poll for you to make your selection on the vision statement that most closely represents your responses to the previous 3 questions and supports the tagline that you selected or suggested. Keep in mind that there will be more opportunity to review the draft vision statement, and you may enter additional comments in the online survey on the Let's Talk website. One last thing to consider for your selection of the draft vision statement is the statement that's at the top of your screen there. And it says, the scope of the management plan is to serve as a roadmap outlining meaningful, high priority actions that the city of Wilsonville will take to support our community between 2020 and 2040 to strive towards our goal of a healthy tree canopy. And there's more information to help set the stage and describe the scope of the project. But what we'd like you to do now is to read through these different vision statements. And like I said, these are draft. There's more work that needs to be done, but getting an overall sense of what you see as a vision for the urban forest and the management plan will help us to finalize this vision statement. And so I'm going to leave that on the screen just for a little bit because there are a lot of words. We would take in your suggestions to rework some of these vision statements. But as I leave that up, I'm just going to look at the chat, and then we'll pull up the poll in just a minute. All right, well, this is great. I'm seeing some additional tagline suggestions, and also looking at where to consider tree preservation and to identify other areas where trees are being lost. So very good input here and feedback. All right, so now we're going to open it up to the second poll. And I'm going to, let's see, launch that. And the A, B, C, D, E correspond with the vision statements on the slide. The E was added for other. If you have other comments, please put those, please put those into the chat. And hopefully you can see the whole vision statement while doing the poll. If you have questions or want me to read off one, I can monitor the chat and read off any of the vision statements. All right, gonna give it 10 more seconds here, and then I'm gonna end the poll, share the results, and then we'll get into some open discussion. All right. All right, well, thanks for all participating in selecting the draft vision statement. We're going to look at this more closely. That's not to say that your vote didn't count. We want to maybe add components to other parts of the other vision statements. And this will be something that will be shared on, most likely on the Let's Talk Wilsonville website, so folks can weigh in. And when we finalize the plan, we'll have the final vision statement, but there will be time to review this with the third community meeting that's coming up, and then you can weigh in with the survey that's now available. All right. So I wanted to make sure I capture the results, and then we're going to just conclude me talking with how this information will all be used, and then open it up for open discussion here. So this is just a screenshot to show where we're headed with all of this. So the 6 planning elements inform the audit. We look at the project findings summarized in the research summary. We gather community feedback. We analyze existing operations and develop the goal and action framework. And just some examples of what that may look like. Having the priority level of effort for an action, including the implementer of the action itself, looking at the target year to implement, as well as the co-benefits, which are important to show that not only is the urban forest going to improve with this action, but also those co-benefits of enhancing community, addressing equity, and addressing human health. So we just wanted to share some examples of what that might look like as we go forward with the goal and action framework. And with that, what I have on the next few slides are just some reminders. And I'm going to see about looking at the chat and also opening it up for folks to have open discussion here if you'd like, and we'll address any of the questions and comments in the chat. So I believe I made it available for folks to chat, and It's just taking a little bit to allow for folks to chat. But if you have a question or comment, let's take a look at the chat and see what we can discuss here. I see a few that I was able to unmute. And if you don't have anything to say, no problem. It's just something that I have to manually do as part of this webinar platform. So don't feel that you have to say anything. Just want to make sure we give folks an opportunity to chat. All right, and then looking through the chat, I'm going to go up a bit here. We have questions about the data itself, looking at the Douglas fir and Western red cedar, and considering future plantings. Are we going to be only thinking of native trees? And just wanted to keep in mind that native trees, when they work in the environment, are most recommended because of their ability to establish well and not be invasive.
Amazing.
When we think about climate change and being resilient to change, we want to open up the palette a bit more because we want the species diversity. So while they may not be native, possibly other trees that aren't invasive may be considered in the planting palette. That idea of resilient. And just going through some of the other questions and comments, we want to look at the value to wildlife. That's definitely important. From the U.S. Forest Service, we don't have specifics to the wildlife contributions from the urban forest, but what we do look at is contiguous canopy, creating those corridors and making sure to maintain habitats. Part of that comes with what we review and recommend for tree preservation as well. So definitely wildlife is an important component to the urban forest when we look at benefits as well as the strategies. And let me scroll to the bottom because I saw some new messages. What are the other elements of a balanced natural environment, and how does the evolution and implementation of our management plan impact those other elements? Yeah, so we do focus on the urban forest, but it is an ecosystem. And we look at other elements, looking at low-lying shrubs, we look at pollinator plants, we look at flowering plants as well. And also important to this is the soil quality, as well as water quality and availability. So when we look at how we consider other elements to have a balanced natural environment, I think the most important role that management plans have in serving that is to look at the appropriate species for a site. If you're planting a species that isn't drought tolerant and you know it's not going to get watered and climate is changing, you're putting a higher demand for resources and a demand on the environment itself. So thinking about the right tree for the right site is a really important part for a balanced natural environment. You also want to look at soils, the pH, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and looking at the abundance and availability of these different soil compounds, because soil is a vital asset as well. We take it for granted sometimes, but we need to make sure that we maintain that soil environment. So those are important factors as well. Mulching is important to add compost back to the environment. And I would say, again, the biggest thing is to look at the right tree, right place. All right. There are other things that we can address in the comments, but I wanted to wrap up with a few closing slides, and then we'll reopen it again for more discussion. We have more time available for folks to provide comments and questions in the chat. All right, as I mentioned, we have, let me just clear my slide here. As I mentioned, we have a survey that's open, and we also have recently completed the analysis of the first survey as we summarize. So we want to remind you that that's available on the Let's Talk Wilsonville website, the second survey, which looks more closely at the strategies for the management plan. And as I mentioned before, provide your comments and feedback from this presentation in that survey or use the chat. But keep in mind, this survey will be open till December 4th, and we'll send out reminders, but check in on the Let's Talk Wilsonville website to take this survey, and we appreciate you taking the time to participate. Then we just wanted to remind folks that throughout September and October, we held a photo contest where folks could upload their pictures to the Let's Talk Wilsonville website or on Instagram with the hashtag Wilsonville Trees. 85 photos were received, all of which were great highlights of Wilsonville's urban forest, and it made the judging very difficult. We had Planet Geo had a small role in that, but other city partners did the primary judging. And I'll say on my end, it was really difficult to make a decision. The criteria for judging included the artistic quality of the image and the image's ability to capture the essence of the urban forest management plan. After narrowing it down to the top 10, the judges were able to identify the top 3 photos. And so here on this slide, we have the winners presented. And we want to say congratulations to the photographers of these 3 photos shown on the slide. And as mentioned in the announcement about this project, the winners will receive a copy of Wise Trees, which is a portrait book by Diane Cook, Len Gensel, and Verlin Klinkenborg, as well as a $50 gift certificate from a local native plant nursery. All photos entered in the contest are eligible to be included in the final urban forest management plan document as well. So even if you weren't selected, we would like to add you to the urban forest management plan possibly, and we'll be sure to cite and credit the photographer for contributing to this effort. So we thank you all for your participation in this activity. All right, and with that, going to open it up again for more discussion and chat. And if I am able to unmute you, if you do want to speak directly, just let me know in the chat, and then I'll do that directly. Otherwise, we'll monitor the chat, and we're here for another 20 minutes or so, but can conclude when all comments and questions are addressed. And just so we get the chance to thank you all before folks head out, I want to put on the last slide so you have our contact information. And I want to say thank you all again for your participation and taking the time to join us today. And as a reminder, this presentation is recorded, and you're also welcome to attend the evening session, which will be at 6:30. And as I mentioned, there will be one last meeting as part of this project to discuss the draft plan. And we hope that you are able to participate in the second survey to weigh in on the strategies as well as the vision for the plan. And with that, again, we're opening up to comments and questions. And I asked if, Carrie, if you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want to thank you, Chris, for giving such a wonderful presentation. I think, you've provided some great information at this point. We'll be working through the analysis, as you mentioned, and the benchmarking and developing the goals and strategies. So there'll certainly be more information to be sharing with the public as we move forward with the process. And then once again, I'd like to just acknowledge the really wonderful photos that we received. It was a great thing to see in terms of the interest on the part of the community. And all of them were just wonderful in terms of what they depicted and what they showed as far as our urban forest. and then certainly our 3 prize winners that, you know, we're going to definitely use their photos in the plan. We hope to use as many of the other photos as possible too. So we highly encourage you to take the survey and to let me know if you want to speak, you know, about any topic related to the management plan. My contact information is right there, so you can call, and we're here to work with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I see Jim has his hand raised, and I believe he's unmuted. So, Jim? We'll see if Jim's available here to speak up.
Hey, Chris, it's Andrea. I think it's actually Steve that's labeled as Jim. I'm not sure if he still has the ability to speak or if he's unmuted.
Thank you. I had skimmed that comment in the chat and it didn't register. Yeah, Steve? Well, we can look to address anything that's in the chat. It does show that the person is unmuted, but we can circle back if it's in the chat or if he's able to speak into the system here. Andrew, is there anything specific as you were monitoring the chat to call out?
I think you did a good job covering most of what they came up with, and they asked some really good questions. There was a few, you know, that were pretty Charbonneau specific, and I think I tried my best to answer those for them. But really, just kind of how we're going to address in the plan the potentially risky trees in Charbonneau along French Prairie, and then anything that are, you know, might be on private land there as well.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thanks for monitoring the chat there. And we'll be saving the chat to review, and if there's any follow-ups that we need to do, we can certainly do and also consider as part of the management plan itself. Got another message coming in here. Okay, yeah, appreciate that. You said that he'll send an email. Yep, and feel free, like we said, to check out the survey. There's room for additional comments, so you can expand there as well, and we'll look to receive your email. All right, well, with that, going to just say thank you again. We're going to hang on the line for a bit longer for folks to add anything else to the chat, but I think most attendees have signed off. So with that, thank you again. This meeting is recorded. We will be able to share it for folks that aren't able to attend. And also, if you're interested, we have the 6:30 session. And one last reminder that there's the second survey. So share that with others as well. And thank you all. All right, folks, it looks like it's down to the 3 of us. So I am recording this and I'm going to